Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 239 Real Estate Roundtable podcast. Today, we have a very special guest. Milva Gilluly is originally from Argentina. She's a top producing realtor in the Tri-County area of South Florida. She's the number one agent in her office, consisting of 88, number 18 in the region, and 2% globally for Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. She's also a relocation and luxury real estate specialist. Welcome to the show, Milva.
Hi, Kevin. How are you? Thank you so
Good,
much for having me.
good. Thanks for coming on. So, Milva, why don't we start so the audience can kind of get to know you as well? Tell us a little bit more about, your real estate story. How did you get into real estate and why, and how long have you been doing it?
I started in 2013. Actually, I was working in an office as a property manager for a family that had their own portfolio. And I was doing all their bookkeeping, but I was following very closely the way that they managed the properties and helping them out.
Right.
And then I got a call from a family member saying that she had applied for a position working as an assistant for two real estate agents that were top agent at that time. It was for Prudential. And she interviewed and didn't get the job. So she recommended that I go interview, and I did. And there were two ladies that had been top agent competing, but best friends at the same time for a long time. And basically, they wanted me to work for both. And really quickly I realized I could not work for both. They were completely different personalities and it was going to be crazy. So basically I went with one of them, and she was a top producer for many years. At that point when I met her, she had been in the business 27 years.
Wow.
So she had a lot of business, and yeah, she threw me in the mix right away. And that's how it all started. I wasn't really even looking to be a real estate agent. I didn't have a license at all. I
Right.
was just doing something else.
Nice. Awesome. Well, that's how it oftentimes goes, right? It's kind of like
Yeah.
you dip your toes in, or you do it part-time, and then you see how it is from some top producing agent, and it sucks you in, right? So, what brokerage are you with at the moment?
It's Berkshire Hathaway. When I first joined, which was actually 2012, I didn't have a license in 2012. I was just an assistant doing office work. It was Prudential. And then later, 2013, Berkshire Hathaway took over Prudential. So we're Berkshire Hathaway Home Services since.
Yep. Awesome. Awesome. And so I said in the intro, Tri-County area of South
Yep.
Florida. Maybe you can kind
Yep.
of elaborate on that for some, you being a relocation specialist. I'm sure you work with a lot of out of town, out of state buyers. Maybe you can
Absolutely.
elaborate, for someone that's not familiar. What's the Tri-County area of South Florida? What does that consist of?
Well, basically, it's the Miami-Dade area, the Fort Lauderdale, which is the Broward County, and then we have Palm Beach County. So overall, Miami is a huge county. So is Palm Beach, and Broward is more contained. So I would say the majority of my business probably is in Broward, but I do extend my business all the way to the areas of Sunny Isles, Aventura, and then going north, there's a lot to cover. I mean, Palm Beach goes all the way to Port St. Lucie, so I could basically be selling a lot out there. But, you know, I just sold three new constructions in Luxahatchee, which is an hour and 15 minutes away from where I live. So I just don't keep it in one spot pretty much everywhere. And when people come from out of the country or from other states, they really don't know the area. They're getting relocated because of their employer, and it depends if they're remote or not, but basically when they tell me what they're looking for, if it's A-rated schools or proximity to the water, I have to assess which locations are going to be best, and I could be showing them in the three different counties just to explain to them the differences, and then by day two they already know where they want to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's usually how it goes.
Awesome. Awesome. So let's back up here for 1 second. So you said when you started off as an assistant, right? And then kind of went full time. So I mean, what my question would be, what sparked your passion for real estate and how has it evolved since Berkshire Hathaway in 2013? Like what keeps you going and motivated and things like
Yeah.
that?
I think originally what I thought that I was going to be doing as an assistant was basically running the office for this top agent. And I quickly realized that she didn't have procedures in place, and she didn't do the pictures and she didn't enter the listings. So I had to learn a lot of other stuff on top of what I was already doing in the property management with my background in business. So I was running the office, but at the same time, she was giving me opportunities to go meet with clients, do an inspection, take tenants out. So then once I learned about the interaction with the clients and how fun it was in the sense that you're not sitting behind a desk all day, which I had been doing for most of my life.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I like this. Every day was different. Although my home was 3 minutes away from the office, I would go there every day and just pretty much, depending on what the day brought, I would be in and out of the office maybe 4 or 5 times. Or so that quickly just became kind of addictive because I love houses. Love decorating. I love to see how people live, and not in a creepy way, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
find it interesting.
Yeah,
So it's just like every day is a new fresh day, and that's why I think I love it. And just to meet new people, and their chapters, like one day I'm going to have to write a book because I have way too many stories about most of my transactions. But
yeah,
it's so interesting and it's so fulfilling, especially being a relocation specialist, because you're educating them. The moment they get in your car, they used to get in the car more often. Now they rent their own since COVID, but you feel like you're needed in the sense that they want to hear everything you have to say.
yeah,
And I love that portion of it.
yeah. That I
You're
would.
more than just opening doors, which is what a lot of people think we do.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that. And especially, I don't know if you work with a lot of younger people or like first-time home buyers. It's just
Mhm.
that's kind of one of my favorite parts, like almost setting them up for the future, right? Like as far as like
Yeah.
equity and home ownership and
Yeah.
like kind of stuff. So I would definitely agree with you. So as like a certified relocation specialist, why would, what kind of specialized services do you offer to your clients over like someone that, let's say, is not certified in being a relocation specialist?
Yeah, I think more than anything is basically the knowledge of the different areas. Everybody has different needs. So I get a lot of families that have never been here before, or families from out of the country, families that are not really familiar with the language. So they're just being relocated because of their jobs. And when they come here, it's like, they're blind. They don't understand anything. They just know where their work is going to be, and sometimes they do get a relocation person that helps them with the schools and the how to do their paperwork and all that stuff. But when they don't, then I'm their only resource. So when they say, listen, our importance right now is to be in a good school area, or I don't know, we have family that travels often, we want to live close to the airport, depending on what it is, I have to figure out the areas that would better suit them. And it could be, and like I said, in 3 different counties, based on their budget. So being relocation, you have to be more aware of what's going on in a lot of different markets
Yeah,
because they're all different. If I were to farm just one area, like for example, I live in Pompano Beach, Florida, then I would just be knowledgeable in this area because this is what I want to sell. I don't want to get out of my circle. Well, I don't have that luxury. I put a ton of miles in my car every year. Luckily, I like to drive, so it's not an issue, you know.
nice,
But
nice.
that's what relocation is. It's just pretty much being able to fill the needs of the clients that come here with absolutely no knowledge.
Yeah, sounds like just have a very, very wide knowledge, not about a certain, like you said, a lot of agents, which is totally normal, totally fine. A lot of
Yeah.
agents focus on one, neighborhood. If it's a big
Yeah.
neighborhood, one HOA, a certain
Yeah.
zip code. As like a relocation specialist, you're extremely knowledgeable in an area that you cover, not just like one specialized area.
Yeah.
And that makes a lot of sense. And I liked something that you said because when clients first come here that relocate, whether be job or whatever it may be, they know very little about the area. They know nothing, and like you said, they're
Yeah.
blind. I had that same experience. My girlfriend and I, we just went to Dallas, Texas, and of course, like you mentioned, everybody likes to look at nice houses that are nice
Yeah.
and shiny and new, and see how people live, right? So we did the same thing, and I mean Dallas, like or DFW, that whole area was, and I do this every day, right, as a realtor
Yeah.
myself, and like it was so overwhelming, right? Like it was
Yeah.
just oh my God, like where do you even go? Where do you start? Like where are the good
Yeah.
schools? What areas to stay away? So I just had that same
Yeah, you
experience.
need somebody to
Yeah,
guide you. Like we're purchasing a home in Jupiter Farms, which is probably 20 minutes further than what I would normally
right.
stop.
Yeah,
And I'm like a relocation client right now.
yeah, yeah,
I'm like, what's going on? And it's acreages of land and the septic and the well. And here you don't get that,
yeah,
when
yeah,
you go to the outskirts, you do. So I'm like representing myself, obviously, for the transaction. And I'm like, okay, there's so many things that I don't know. And my lender that I work with for most of my clients, I'm like calling him desperately, asking him all these silly questions. And I'm like, I've never been on this end of the deal, And he's
yeah.
like, stop being so nervous. It's going to be fine. But it's kind of funny how it all now, because when I'm in charge of a transaction for my customers, I don't worry. I know what I'm doing. It's like so clear to me.
Yeah,
I know that he's handling or whatever is happening, it's all under control. And if it's not, I'm going to take care of it.
yeah,
In my own transaction, I was like, okay, this feels different,
yeah,
which
yeah,
is very
100%.
interesting. Yeah.
100%. I always also find it fascinating, like how quickly it changes, right? Like you'd go, like you said, right, 15 minutes farther than you
Yeah.
usually go, and it's just completely different. Like a flood zone, well, septic,
Oh my
taxes.
gosh.
Yes,
I don't think I've ever done so many inspections in one house, but obviously we're buying in a place where there's acreage homes from
yeah,
one up
yeah,
and chimney inspection, well,
um,
septic, I mean,
yeah,
the lake, all these things were like, okay, this is interesting. And what do you do? And especially it's hard for us because we know how to sell houses in a way. We tell people the truth about what we see,
yeah,
but we can work with anything. Like, okay, yeah, that kitchen is not okay, but you can work on it. Oh, the roof doesn't have a permit. Don't worry. I know a company that will retrofit that permit for you.
yeah,
And whatever it is in your head, you have the solutions for everything. So when you go look at houses, you like them all.
yeah.
You
Right.
can move into any
Yes.
of them.
Yes.
So we were like, okay, well, this one would work. And I'm doing like what my clients do, that they sit in a house for 30 minutes knowing that they're not going to buy it, but potentially you can make it work. So that's kind of funny.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was just talking to one of my seller clients about that, that just most people just that don't do this every day, they just kind of have a hard time envisioning a space with their furniture when like a seller's furniture is
Yeah.
in there and that kind of stuff. So that's funny. So where
And
do go
that's
ahead.
where my staging comes into place,
Right.
because for me it's so clear. I mean, I walk into a place and I can already see what needs to change,
Yeah.
where things should go, and people rely on me for that.
Yeah, give us some more, explain that a little. Like, do you stage most of your homes or you would only stage them if they're vacant or like how do you handle the staging process?
Well, I got certified in 2007, right before the market tanked. My ex-husband was a builder, and he would build spec homes that were ginormous.
Yep.
And instead of paying a staging company, he said, well, let's work on you getting your staging license, which I love because I love to decorate anyway. So I did the whole certification, and then the
Yes.
market tanked. So basically, I had to do my whole portfolio and I had to stage X amount of homes in order to get certified, but I never bought inventory. So since I started in real estate, I don't per se go and stage it with my furniture because I don't have it. But I will go into the homeowner's house and say what they need to change and how and where to put it, and if they need another piece of furniture. If I do get a property through relocation that is not furnished, they will allow me to stage the property. So I work together with the stagers just to
Yeah.
get it together. But it really helps because a lot of people living in their homes, they don't see what's wrong with it and how it could put off some customers. So I tell them, from painting to fixing things to rearranging to decluttering. And sometimes I will put my shorts on and just go and do it myself because there's no choice.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah. What are maybe to for the some people in the audience that might think of selling their home
Yeah.
anytime? What are like the most common things you see? Like if you go into 20
Definitely.
homes, what are like the most common things where you're like, all right, this has to
I
change?
I think honestly the paint choices.
Yeah.
Paint choices were just, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't even know. I think that's my biggest pet peeve. And then that's simple. It's just painting. If you want a list of things that should be done just to get the home sold, take your popcorn ceilings down.
Yeah.
There's companies that don't really have to be so intrusive and they can come and do it. But
Yeah.
it just dates the house. And here, at least in the areas that I work, it's so common that they redid the kitchen and they maybe changed the floors. And then you look up and you're like, oh my God, because not only it doesn't look nice, they're
Yeah.
yellow after X amount of years of not
Yeah.
being painted. But I think, yeah, the paint color and then just clutter.
Yeah.
And for like, even in my own house, my clutter is not clutter to me,
Right.
but for somebody else walking in, it might be. So I have to be very subjective and I'm talking about their personal items, but at the end of the day, it's for the better.
Yeah, one keyword I always like to use to help them envision it as close as possible to a model home, right? Obviously,
Yeah,
there's furniture in the model home. Maybe there's
yeah,
even some,
yeah,
basic pictures, but there's not really not much like personal stuff like laying around
yeah.
in
And
home.
usually, some people just don't care about their decorations or the way they live or to make it homey. I usually come in with a big box, and if it's vacant, it's easier because I just do little vignettes around the house. Like I like to put stuff in the kitchen and the bathrooms, just to make it so that you have a focal point when you walk into the room. So like
Yeah,
today before I had showings, I went and I staged a little condo. I didn't stage it, but I just put my little vignettes. 1-bedroom condo going on the market tomorrow. And I put some stuff in the kitchen, a welcome sign on the door, little towels in the bathroom, just so that when you walk into the bathroom and say, oh my gosh, it's not fully renovated,
yeah,
but it gives you a warm feeling. So I love to do that. I show up with my big bin and a bunch of stuff and, I
nice,
test things out. And then closet behind me is the one that's holding all my little staging stuff.
nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I guess sometimes it must be hard when you ask your seller clients to pay somebody $2,000 to $3,000 to repaint their home or however
Yeah.
much it may be. Sometimes it's more or
Yeah.
less. But what would you tell someone that's kind of hesitant with that? Because I mean, as you and I know, aging can actually yield you a higher price
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
amount of time. So is that kind of something you relate to those people as well, or how would you?
No, absolutely. I think the most important way to be with your customers, first of all, you're talking about a touchy subject because it's the way they like to live, and that's why it's that way.
Yeah,
So basically, what you have to explain is that although it's really nice, what you're trying to accomplish is to appeal to the most amount of people. And first impressions are everything. So at the end of the day, I offer, if I need to go paint with somebody, I'll go have a paint party. I don't have a problem. I'm that kind of agent. Like I sold a house last year, mid-year, and I didn't like the color of the doors. They were worn out. And so I just put my shorts on. I grabbed some paint. I painted the doors black. I put some nice wreaths outside, some nice pillows on a bench outside. And
nice.
that looked like out of a magazine. And
Yeah.
it cost me $20 a paint and 2 hours of my job and maybe a pair of shoes that I stained with paint. But other than that,
Yeah.
it makes a difference. So
Yeah.
first impressions. So I always try to give them a reason why it needs to happen. And I don't get pushback really, unless I'm asking for something bigger. And then at that point I said, okay, if you can't fix that, if it's something else, then we have to disclose it. And that's my approach. But I tried to guide them to put their best foot forward so that when I show up there with a client to go see it, everybody's in a happy place.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And it's not what you say, it's how you say it, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah, and obviously in real estate, as we know, it's not if but when
hmm,
problems and challenges arise, right?
yeah.
What are kind of some like common challenges you've encountered lately when assisting clients, whether it be buying or selling?
I think inspections. It's like appraisals. Most of the time, it's one person's opinion. How many things or how many little things you want to put on an inspection. I've had inspections that were 10 pages long. I had some that were 120 pages long.
Yeah,
So some inspectors put cosmetic stuff on them. Some of them don't. So unless I have the buyer and I have my inspection company and I can calm them down and say, okay, well, this is that, and the level of importance. Homes are sold as is. Let's tackle their priorities and see where we can go
yeah,
from there. But I think that's the biggest issue all the time. Sellers don't want to do anything else. The buyers want the seller to do that.
Yeah.
And negotiation, if you negotiated the price to begin with, expect nothing. That just happened to me with the purchase of my future home. I
Yeah.
negotiated on the price. I did not get not 5 cents back from the seller, nothing. He
Wow.
was already upset with me because I negotiated the price.
Right.
But I think I try to, when I go get a listing, I
Yeah.
try to anticipate those things prior. Like I will tell them what needs to be done.
Yeah.
Depending on the listing and how uncertain I am about the things happening in the home, I will suggest an inspection before that. But again, that's money that the seller has to put out before, and an inspection nowadays, a comprehensive one is,
Yeah.
$500-600. I play with that also because depending on the home and the age of the roof, if I can get a 4-point and a wind mitt, which is less expensive, I pretty much know if the basic components of the house
Yeah.
are okay or not. So every customer is different and every
Yeah.
situation is different. But luckily, I'm able to elaborate on the fly and know what needs to be done on each different case. So
Yeah.
that helps.
Yeah, and that's a great strategy. I mean, that's very smart because I
Yeah.
think what I heard you say, just for the people listening, is
Yeah.
on an older home,
Yeah.
when vacation and 4-point, you don't need
Yeah.
an inspector. You don't need to pay
Yeah.
an inspector $600 to tell you that there's paint chips in the wall in a certain.
No, absolutely not. No.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I just want to make sure that if we negotiate a contract before you go to inspection, you're already, because nowadays we're not in the overpaying stage here, at least in our area. We're basically at the point where buyers are negotiating and they're
Right.
getting away with negotiating. So you're already reduced. And then here comes the inspection. Now your roof is shot, your AC is shot, your water heater is shot, some of your appliances, and your pool's leaking. So now
Yeah.
you don't want to fix it because you want to get out, you want to be done. And at the end of the day, they're going to want more money. So how was I of service if I did not anticipate? I can't anticipate everything, but let's try to put our best foot forward and figure out what's wrong. And a
Yeah.
lot of people don't want to do it. And again, after doing this for so many years, having had a past in property management, my ex was a builder, like I said,
Yeah.
I'm knowledgeable in a lot of things. So I'm able to say, hey, there's something wrong with this, or I can sense that the pool is leaking, the pavers are falling in. There's a lot of stuff that I can pick up, but if they want an inspection, and they can afford it, then I suggest it. And then you offer that as a guarantee to the buyer. Obviously, like I said, every inspector is different, but at the end of the day, if I can give you a report that's 2 months old,
Right.
and then you can go over it and see if that's satisfactory to you or not. If you want to go pay somebody else, at least you have a starting point. Same
Right.
with the appraisal. I'm pretty good, I think, at doing appraisals. I mean, not appraisals, but BPOs, because for relocation, for listings, they make me do this extensive 12-page report.
Oh, I
So I
know.
kind of understand the process. But so I'm pretty good coming up with the prices, but there's always that house that is cookie cutter or has something that does not compare.
Yeah.
And that's when I suggest, let's do an appraisal. And if they can afford it, fine. If they can't, and I'm still uncertain as to if I can go higher, that's always my question. Can I push higher? Because I don't like to reduce. I like to have my properties priced well to sell fast.
Yeah.
Then I'll go and pay for an appraisal.
Yeah. Oh,
And I'll
wow.
have that as a tool, you
Right.
know. I just listed a home that was in a neighborhood. I just sold it actually. That was in a neighborhood of 350 homes, but only one block was built by a different builder.
Right.
And there was no activity in the last 6 months in that street, but they were custom homes. They were estate homes.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to leave any money on the table for the sellers. And I
Right.
didn't want to, obviously those homes are more expensive than the rest of the ones in the community. So
Yeah.
I had to get an appraisal, and everybody now thinks that their house is worth the same because a lot of people don't even know that street was built by somebody different.
Yeah.
But if anything, it just pushed all the comps up in the neighborhood,
Okay. So everybody
because
should
I did that and I didn't settle for going with what the other prices were.
right. So everybody should be happy with you and be calling you next since you just made
I hope so. I really worked my tail off. I took a listing across the street from the beach, and the client, he interviewed like, I don't know, 6 agents. Now we're down to 3.
Right.
And this process was like 6 or 7 months. It was tedious, but one day he called and he's like, last few questions. Are you going to do a video? And I'm like, yeah, you have a luxury listing. I'm going to do a video. I'm not really great on camera, but I'll do it because people want to
Right.
see you.
Right.
And he's like, okay, the other question, are you a full-time agent? And I said, no, I'm not a full-time agent. I'm an overtime agent. I work probably 70 hours a week. And he's like, that's it, you're hired.
Nice.
You know?
Yeah.
But it shows. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to be
Of course.
successful.
Of course. It's a good question on his end too. I haven't encountered that question by that many sellers if you're
It makes
full.
a difference.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
should be asking that question because I have too many stories. We don't have time, but
Yeah, we don't have time for, I'm sure, as far
yeah,
as the agent, I'll say it nicely and politely. I'm sure as far as the agent saturation over on your coast, it's probably the same as on my coast, if
it's
not
crazy.
worse.
It's crazy. But I think in your coast, people are retired doing this.
Yeah.
In my coast, people have full-time jobs doing this.
Right.
So the ability of not showing the property or not answering the phone or not having the experience because it's only 1 or 2 transactions a year just comes back to me or whoever is on the
Yeah.
full-time spectrum of this doing everything.
Yeah.
And some other people just don't want to do a job. Like I had a conversation 2 days ago with somebody that said, like, pretty much he was telling me to do the least amount possible. You're getting paid the same. And I'm like, I looked at him and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go now because that's who I have to go against in a lot of transactions, minimal effort. So
Yeah.
anyways, we're not here to talk
No,
about
I hear
agents.
you. But one thing I found as agents such as yourself that have been doing this since 2012, 2013, the real estate market is extremely competitive. So at least in Florida. So I found that working with agents that have been doing this for a while,
Yeah.
5+ years, 10 years, they're usually good agents. Otherwise, they would have already been out, right? Like you rarely
I
run.
see.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of agents that sustain themselves by doing, like I said, 1, 2 transactions a year and then having a part-time job or a full-time job even.
Right.
But at the same time, you cannot service your customers properly if you do that. It's just not feasible. Like I answer the phone. I have the phone with me. I have 4 automatic messages that I send out depending on if I'm with clients, if I'm personal time off, or if I'm on the phone, or if I cannot answer, but I can text. So depending on which situation I'm in,
Yeah.
but it's like I wish I were a guy, so I had jeans all the time and put my phone in my pocket, but usually I have dresses and I have to have my phone in my hand, which is annoying, but I answer my phone all the time, one way or another.
That's what people expect, especially when they're paying a lot of commission on a big listing like you seem to be doing a lot of. So yeah. And then Miami, I saw a little Instagram post here today or yesterday. I think Miami is year over year is has seen the fastest growing like price appreciation in the whole
Yeah.
nation. So you must
Yes.
be working with quite a few investors as well. And I know you do a little bit of property of management as well for your clients. So maybe you can share some tips for landlords or people that want to become landlords navigating the rental market in your region over there. I'd love to hear more about that because I'm not too
Yeah. I would say like years ago, I would encourage people to buy small investment properties. When somebody had a budget of 600,000, let's say, I would suggest to have 3 small condos just because the versatility, the fact that you can have 3 different circumstances in case you have a house, you lose one tenant, then it doesn't produce at all. But that scenario changed a lot after the Surfside incident, where the insurance has gone crazy, the HOA fees have gone crazy. So right now, for investors, in reality, it would be to buy a level entry home, which in our area start at 450, if possible, close to a good rated school area. And those houses will always rent. And suggestion for landlords is something super simple. Get a home warranty, something that costs you $800 a year. On the lease, you write that basically the first 150 of every repair is responsibility of the tenant. So they pick up the phone, call whichever company it is, They charge a service fee of 75 or whatever it is, but at the end of the day, that's covered in the 150 that you asked them to cover. So they can resolve their issues within 24 hours. You don't have to, wake up in the middle of the night and try to find a plumber.
Yeah.
You already have that set up, and it covers pretty much everything.
Yeah.
So that's like tip number one. A lot of people don't see the value of it, but if you've never been a landlord and you run into 2 issues 1 month, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, why did I do this?
Yeah.
There's no real reason not to have that. I mean, it has to be added up to the cost of just running an investment property. But that's tip number one. Tip number two, screen your clients, do research. Google says everything. It's just, you have to. I mean, there's never a guarantee, but at the end of the day, you're not going to kick yourself back and say, oh, I should have done that.
Yeah.
And I should have known more or asked more questions.
Right.
You have the right,
Yeah, 100%.
So that's important.
As long as you stay within your fair housing laws and all that fun
Of
stuff.
course. No,
Yeah.
but you have to, you're allowed to ask for a background check, employment, credit score, and that's pretty much it. Verify employment. That's really important. People say don't go the extra mile to check if they really are employed. You can say you work for anybody, but at the end of the day, it takes 1 second to call, the employer,
Yeah.
and that all comes in an application. And I think the landlord should do that portion of it just because they want to hear
Yeah.
directly. We can't vet the tenants, but they can assess if they've been good tenants somewhere else or not. You
Yeah.
know?
Nice. And so one follow-up question I just had for you with the relocation, with your focus on relocation. So I guess so you gave some advice and some tips or best practices for landlords. What advice would you give people relocating to the Tri-County area besides calling you, obviously?
I think primarily is try to really be able to make a list of their priorities. If it's schools, it's very simple. There's great schools in many different areas, but if they want proximity, if they want parks, just have a notion. They don't have to know where they want to be. They just need to know what they want out of the city. Number two is it's really hard to come in one trip if you're relocating from somewhere else and buy something that week if you really don't know the market. I usually like to have with my relocation clients an intro trip where they come, the company sends them over, they explore the areas. I take a couple of days or 3, whatever needs to happen, especially if they have kids, it's longer, and take the time to show them around. I do prepare a booklet for them based on the area. Some areas have a lot of private neighborhoods around here where they're all different. They all have different amenities. So I try to do a book with the different communities that we're going to go visit. But just for me, it's about bringing knowledge to them and explaining the difference between the areas. And if they tell me, hey, listen, I don't care to be close to the beach. I really rather have a nice backyard with a pool and where I could put a tiki or whatever it is. In my head, I already know exactly in that budget where it's going to be.
Nice.
So I will send them options in different cities because I'm not steering anybody. I'm just giving you a choice, but at the same time, when you see that there's more options in one place, it kind of guides itself,
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Great advice. So I think as the audience can tell, Milva, I want to thank you for coming on the show, on the podcast. I think you're
Thank you.
wealth of knowledge, a lot of expertise. I've been doing this for a long time. If someone wants to get in touch, anybody thinking of buying, selling, investing, relocating over on the East Coast of Florida or Southeast Florida, how would they get in touch with you?
I'm on the social media across the board, so they can find me through Milva Gilluly. My phone number is 954-775-7538, and they can also reach me via email at Milva. It's milva@milvasells.com. So text message, anything. I usually am pretty good at answering right away. And I get very excited when I get new people that I can help. So just especially people that are moving from other areas and then they just need a little guidance. That's really what I love to do.
That's what we're here for, right? Thanks again. I really appreciate your time. I know you're very busy being such a successful realtor, so I do want to thank you for your time, Milva.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You got it.